here we go. Alright, good morning everybody. My name's Chloe. I'm going to take you through how to prepare for a helicopter flight today. How we're going to run this is I'm going to show you a video of a man named Mo Morrison who was in a helicopter ditching, so he just gives his account of his experience, I guess. The second thing we're going to go over is why we're actually here, and the third thing we're going to go over is putting together our 6-point Hewitt individual checklist. Now, has anyone in this room been on a flight before?
No.
No? Awesome. Alright, so you're going to know exactly what to do when we get on that flight. Alright, so the first thing is Mo Morrison's account. So I'm just going to play this and let you guys watch that through.
Yeah, the sortie commenced. We went out in the morning. It was off Scotland. It was a nice sunny day. It was an ASW sortie where we were doing a sonar trial. I was in the front left-hand seat. We transited out, no incident, went into the hover. We did a few pings on the sonar, and then about 5 minutes into it, after being into the hover, we got like a rumbling noise in the background, which then stopped. The noise came back again, and then I got a smell of burning. I said to the guys, can anybody else smell burning? And we got a second opinion that we could actually smell burning, and then the noise went away altogether, which made us think, let's just get out of the hopper. Actually, in hindsight, we're in a very good place. We were going to have a problem, but we didn't know at this stage. Bear in mind that Merlin's got lots of secondary backup indications, it's got lots of indications, voice warning. There was nothing to indicate there was a problem with the aircraft. We then broke dip, transited away, and as we did so, the noise got louder, vibration increased, smell of burning increased. We realised we did have a problem, but there were still no indications in the cockpit. So we decided to go across towards land, which is about 10-15 miles away. Started transiting towards land, the noise got louder, the smell got worse, and then all of a sudden a big fireball ripped through the aircraft. At one stage we overflew a fishing vessel, and the guys afterwards said it looked like that Concorde with the amount of flame that we had going behind us. What then happened was more alerts started coming up. We had lots of audio, lots of visual cues, and it was really an environment I'd never experienced before in my life, with so many cues, so many bits of information coming through to suggest we had a major problem. At that stage I decided to put the window out, and I had jets in my window, and I was surprised because we've done lots of drills where you get the window, you apply a bit of pressure to knock the window out, and as I pulled the handle back, the window just shot off my hand and just disappeared. But at least then I knew there was a nice big hole to the side, and I was relatively confident. At least I knew that was an exit I could go for. As we started going down, the sea just sort of filled up the front of my window as we were descending. And at that stage, I just sort of got really transfixed by the sea coming towards me. And it's that's when I didn't follow the procedure of actually bracing, because I was just really glued to what was just about to happen, and I'd almost sort of resolved myself. This was not going to be, pretty at the end of it. Still, all the bells and whistles are going. We're heading down towards the sea, and then all of a sudden, we saw a mighty impact as we tried to get a mayday out. As we hit the water, immediately it filled up with water, and that's what surprised me a little bit, was how quickly it did fill up. Because yes, I'd had my window out, but we were rolling over the other way and turned over, but immediately it filled up and then disappeared on the water. All went grey, and then there was a few seconds of area, still a little bit hazy as to what happened. But I distinctly remember thinking, I'm in a familiar environment now. Beforehand we were on fire with all these alarms going off, with the alerts and the voice warning. I'd never seen all this go off before. Now I was on the water, it almost felt like, yeah, I'm still here, I'm still conscious, and I'm in a familiar environment in which I've trained for time and time again. And I distinctly remember thinking that at the time. I thought, well, at least it's, hey, shut up that woman with the voice that kept telling me we're just about to die. And it also put the fire out as well, and put me into this familiar environment. So there it was, inverted. Because I knew my window had gone, I'm relatively confident that I could go for my release and know where my exit was. So it wasn't too long before I was able to pull myself out, cleared the aircraft side, and then came to the surface. I already saw one of the guys on the other side of the aircraft. He was already there before me. I didn't have to use my heats because I'd taken a deep breath on the way down, and that was sufficient to get me out. A few dramas in the back, different configuration in the back of the Merlin. They were facing aft. One of the guys got stuck on the way out, almost gave up, said he saw a sort of the grey light, but eventually freed himself after sort of struggling a little bit, stopped struggling, composed himself, and then made his way to the surface. The whole thing on the surface was a little bit surreal because you don't train for that. You train for the Hewitt. You get out and then you get into the next room. You get out and you get into the next room. The good thing about actually ditching is you get out and you stay out. So that was done there, and I'm happy with that. But what surprised me then was the amount of wreckage and debris on the surface. Aircraft blades, there was composite materials, there was radar antennas, there was fuel, a lot of fuel, and I was pretty heavily soaked in fuel. So having got to the surface, I decided to just a quick check of my limbs to make sure I was all still in one piece. And lifted my feet up, that was all good to go. I'd smashed my hand in because I hadn't braced properly, and therefore I was then trying to get into a life raft, which turned out to be the comedy one you normally get in the pool, where you go to inflate it, it just looks at you for a while, but after shaking it a bit, this thing inflated, came up, and then it was a case of trying to get in one-handed then, because my hand was injured, and also my ribs from the impact. I'd already established that my beacon was going off, so that was good. We went too far off land, and not too long afterwards there was some helo passing over. Fortunately as well, the fishing vessel that we overflew on fire had continued to follow us, so in a bit of reverse of roles where we normally go out to rescue fishermen, they came to come pick us up. Then there was a support ship that we've been operating with in the ASW trial, and took us onto that vessel. The guy with the spinal injuries was taken to one hospital. We were taken to another, but we were not overly keen on getting back into another helicopter. It was already bad enough that we'd been rescued by a fishing boat, and then the next thing was there was an Air Force helicopter. So an RAF one, so it wasn't a good day all around getting picked up by these two guys, but the RAF then came and went to the sub. So what was strange was that not long after an accident was getting back into a helicopter, so that was a bit of again another thing that you don't normally think about. So prepare yourself, get in the back of the aircraft, start looking at the exit. This was a Sea King this time, again unfamiliar for a while, so you can bet every one of us had got in the aircraft, started observing where the exits were on there as well, and we were given additional life jackets. Taken to hospital for a checkup, and then the dreaded investigation walk. The next day is they sort of brought everybody up to Scotland where we were at the time. We were then sent down back to Cornwall for interviews and other aspects. And on the way back, I called in on the guys in the Hewitt, and subsequently found out a few of the other guys had done individually, just to go and say thanks. And regardless of how we got out, I think every one of us, there's 5 in all, had a different story of how they got out. But each and every one of us actually got out through the continual training of the dry drills, particularly the Hewitt, the familiarisation of being in that water and feeling strangely familiar in an environment inverted in a helicopter as opposed to the airborne fireball, and put it down essentially to training, and that repetitive training certainly ensured that we got out, and on that day, I think we were told the aircraft exceeded the crash specification, that there was no fatalities, and we're still flying today. So let's say it's down to training, and that's still here.
All right, and so that's Mo's account of the helicopter incident that he was in up in the North Sea. Something that's really important to take away from Mo's account was something that he repetitively said. Can anyone remind me what that was?
That it was a familiar environment once you got in the water.
Perfect. So it's a familiar environment once you got in the water. The reason we are here today is because of what Mo said, is that we are in a familiar environment. We're training you for the unlikely event of a helicopter ditching. So doing this training today increases your chance of survival. All right, it increases your chance of survival from 66% to 92%. That is a massive increase from doing this training. We make this training as realistic as we possibly can, just so that it better prepares you for that environment. As you saw in Mo's account, that environment was familiar for him. It was easier for him to get out. So yeah, today we're going to conduct training in the best way that we possibly can for you. We want to keep it to your helicopter configuration, so something that you will most likely be flying in the future. All right. So let's start going over our passenger pre-flight check. Has anyone seen one of these before?
No.
No? Perfect. So as you get onto a flight, what's going to happen is an air crewman will probably take you over a flight plan. They're going to take you through that, they'll get you sorted, they're going to get you in your survival equipment. However, if for some reason you don't get a briefing from an air crewman, what will happen is that at the least you will get a ditching card. This ditching card up here, this passenger card up here will take you through just the safeties of the helicopter, how to sit properly, how to put your harness on properly. But what we want to look at on your ditching card is we want to zone in to that ditching brief down the bottom here. That is the plan. Every single time you get into a helicopter, you're going to sit down and you're going to go over your plan. So today, we are going to, every single time we get into a scenario today, we will go through our individual checklists. The first one being loose articles, the second one being personal items, the third one being survival equipment, the fourth one being posture and harness, brace position, and then exits. All of these six individual checklists are so important for you to do every time you board an aircraft, all right? So, breaking them down. Number one, loose articles. What are they? They are anything that you are wearing that is potentially could be loose. For example, zippers on your uniforms, shoelaces on your boots, headwear, making sure that's actually clipped up, all right? There's no point in wearing it unless it's clipped up and secure. The other thing that we're really looking for is anything loose on our life jackets, all right? Keeping them away from being a potential snag hazard in case we do have to ditch. Item number two, our personal items. So this is anything that you take onto the flight. For you guys, luckily enough, you guys are passengers, so once you get over to the helicopter, you're probably just going to pass it up to the air crewman, and the air crewman will stow it away for you properly. However, if that isn't the case and you are taking your things on, there is one really important thing you have to remember, and that is that you don't put those bags under your seat. Does anyone know why we don't do that?
Because the air crew might not know what's in there and where it is.
That is a really good answer. However, our seats are actually designed to what we call stroke, which basically just means that on impact, those seats are going to collapse, right? Those seats will then take the whole impact force of that, the whole force of that impact instead of your spine, which is really cool. So, as you can see, if you have a bag underneath the seat, that's going to limit that, and your spine could potentially take that impact. Cool. Number three is survival equipment. All right, so this is things that you wear basically on the outside. So that is your life jacket and your EBS bottle. All right, that life jacket needs to be fitted correctly, and most importantly, you need to make sure that that inflation tag where you inflate the life jacket is clear from actually inflating at a random time. So keeping it clear, keeping it ready to use. The EBS, really important, this is your breathing apparatus. So that's going to be serviceable. You're going to do your pre-flight checks, which we're going to go over a little bit later in the day. But yeah, making sure it's correctly stowed. The fourth point being posture and harness. So at this point now, we're in the helicopter. We've sat down and we're sitting in our seat. What I want you to do is when you've sat down, you're going to, and I'm going to give you an example of this. Once you've sat down, you're going to put your bum at the back of the seat. all right? And your legs are going to be 90 degrees, just like that. This is how you want to posture yourself in a helicopter. From there, you can pop on your harness. It is really important that with your harnesses that you know what harness they are. Up here, we can see that we have a 5-point harness, right? Which means that it has 5 points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the middle here, this is our rotary buckle. That just works in a, where you just rotate it one side or the other. With our harnesses, what we want to make sure is that they're low and central. So, as you can see, this air crewman here has got his buckle right in the center of his body there. That is where we want it to sit, so that the straps can sit over our shoulders nice and comfortably. Something really important to also keep in mind is when we're putting up our harness is that our EBS bottle is clear from sitting underneath our harness. We don't want to, on an impact, have a hard cylinder pushing into our body. So making sure that that's all nice and tight, all right, making sure that that posture is correct before you even start doing it up. Another harness that you might come across is a 4-point harness. This works exactly the same as the 5-point harness, except that it does not have a crotch strap. You just have the strap across your hips and the strap down your shoulders. The same thing applies, you have your rotary buckle here. And in this picture here, it's a little bit easier to see that EBS bottle being kept clear from that strap. His strap is on the inside of that EBS bottle. It is a really good thing. And you also want to make sure with that EBS bottle is that that hose there is free and ready for you to just establish that EBS at any point. Alright. The last harness that you might come across is the 2-point harness. So this is kind of like any sort of commercial airline. It goes across your hips. Alright. And it just works that you flick it up and that will undo the buckle. The one thing to keep in mind with the 2-point harnesses is that it actually sits off center. As you can see in this girl here, it's just off to the side, which is a little bit different to those 5-point and 4-point harnesses where they're right in the middle. So in your plan, you need to make sure that you know what side that buckle's sitting on. Alright, step number 5 is that brace position. Again, different harnesses are going to mean that we have different braces. So with our 5 or 4-point harness, because we have the straps over our shoulders, that is keeping us into our seat. So how we want to look when we brace for this position is once our harness is tight, our posture is correct. We're going to cross our arms over our chest like this. These 4 fingers are going to poke into the harness, the thumbs stay out so that we don't crush them. Once we've made this V position, we're going to put our head into our arms so that when we do crash, it is nice and secured and it's not flipping around like this. Alright, our legs also want to be 90 degrees. So we're going to keep these and we're going to drive them into the floor. This is what we call a full body brace. The other brace position that we can have is if we have a weapon. If we have a weapon with us, not much changes. It's just that one hand needs to be secure on the weapon so that it isn't a hazard in the flight, in the ditching, and it isn't a loose article within the flight. So it's just one hand over the weapon, one hand under the harness, and keeping your head secure as possible. Our other brace positions with those 2-point harnesses. We do not have straps on those 2-point harnesses, so this is redundant. What we're going to do for this is we're going to have both our hands on the outside of our knees, bending those elbows and pulling our head as close to our knees as we possibly can. If we have a weapon with us, just like this picture, it is the same as before. One hand must secure that weapon while the other hand pulls us down. Alright, so guys, show me your 5 or 4-point harness brace. Nice. And show me your 2-point harness brace. Awesome. Alright, you're ready. Okay, and the 6th step on our Hewitt individual checklist is our exits. So I'm just going to go over 2 helicopters with you guys today. Especially as passengers, these are probably going to be the 2 that you're most likely going to find yourself in. The first one being an Emirates 90. The MH90 has 5 exits. 2 at the front, 2 in the middle, 1 at the back. We often say don't use the back one as a exit plan just because it's a lot of free space and it's very hard to keep your references to find that exit. What they look like, guys, you might never find yourself in the cockpit. However, I would prefer to know where all the exits are and how they work than not knowing at all. So in our cockpit at the front, we have our exits on either side. They both look the same. We have a very bright orange jettison handle, which flicks straight back. Once that jettison handle goes back, that whole door will release itself with a push out. Then we have our exits in the middle. So our MRH90 middle exits are really big doors, and there's actually 2 ways for us to jettison this door. The first way being with our jettison handle, which is just under this cover. Once we pop that cover off, our jettison handle is very bright and yellow and it pops out. We grab that jettison handle and we pull it up. Once that has been jettisoned, this whole door here will release at the latches and fall away. There's one thing to keep in mind with the safety of these handles, and it's going to be also in the simulator today, is that there is a pinch point in this handle. Because it pops out, there's actually a gap between the ledge and the handle, and your hand has a potential of getting stuck in it. Alright, we don't want to see any injuries, and also it could be something that would get in the way of actually being able to open that door. So please keep in mind to just hold the end of the exits to pull that up. We have a secondary exit in this on this door, and that is the window here. We start by pulling this tab here. This is what we call a weather seal. Once that comes out, that will allow this window to be pushed out by one of these 4 corners. That will only take away this window though. Yes?
Do you push at the corner or can you push in the centre of the window to pull it out?
Yep, that's a good question. So these 4 corners here are the only things that are going to release that door.
Okay.
If you push that middle, it'll just slack and it won't come off at all.
Okay.
Any more questions? Okay, so our final, the second helicopter I want to go over is the MH60R Seahawk. Okay, as passengers, again, you might find yourself in this one. Our exits in the Seahawk, there's 2 at the front and 2 in the middle. Now, these exits, again, as I said before, you might never find yourself in a cockpit. However, I would rather know where my exits are than not. So how this works is this very bright yellow handle here gets pushed forward and that whole door releases as you push it away. The exits in the middle are actually really well thought out. They have a handle here where it goes from right to left. Once that has been jettisoned, that whole window will fall away. It is really good because on the port or the starboard side of this helicopter, no matter where you are, it's always going to be right to left. So you never have to think about that, it's just always right to left. So they're both identically the same. Alright, is there any questions, guys, so far? No? Alright, I hope you're all listening because we're gonna go over the 6 Hewitt individual checklist points. Can anyone remind me, what's number 1?
Loose articles.
Loose articles, so what does that include?
Shoelaces, zippers.
Perfect. Anything loose on you?
Yeah.
Love it, nice. Alright, let's see if you're right. Loose articles, very good. Okay, can anyone remind me what the second one was?
Personal items.
And remind me, where do we not put personal items?
Underneath the seat.
Underneath the seat. Very good. Okay, number 3.
Survival equipment.
Yep, and let's have a look. Very good. Okay, do we remember what is our survival equipment?
Your EVS and your life jacket.
Perfect. Awesome. Now we're getting into the helicopter. What's the first thing we're doing?
The posture and harness.
Very good. What do we have to remember about the posture?
Your bum needs to be all the way back in your seat.
Yep.
Your legs need to be at 90 degrees, and you need to know what type of harness you're wearing.
Perfect. Love it. All right. Number 5.
The race position.
Perfect. Let's have a look. Yay. All right. Remind me, what are we doing? Is it a full body brace or a half body brace?
The brace will depend on what harness you have.
Perfect.
So full body for 5 and 4, and half body for 2.
Love it. Awesome. And the very last thing and the reason why we're here is?
The exit.
The exits. What do we need to know?
Where all of your exits are, how they work,
Yep.
and how to get through them.
Very good. Awesome. All right. Smashed it, guys. Thank you so much for listening today. We're going to be going through these 6 Hewitt individual checklists as the day goes on. We'll put it into practical a little bit later. Does anyone have any further questions about the individual checklist, about ditchings itself, about the helicopters? No? Are we ready to put it into practice?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you so much.